The boy knelt on the metal platform, wrists bound behind his back, a blanket draped over his head. He couldn't see the crowd gathered below, but he could hear them, thousands packed into the square beneath the looming transmission spire, their silence heavier than any roar. Above, the twin moons of Jetora hung like pale eyes watching, unblinking. High Marshal Crest Virex stood just behind the boy, clad in silver command armor that shimmered beneath the planetary floodlights. His voice, amplified through planetary broadcasts, cut across the galaxy. "Let this be the price of defiance," he said, stepping forward. "Let no one forget the face of insurrection." The hood was pulled away. A gasp rippled through the crowd, not for the boy's youth, but for his eyes. They burned a deep, unnatural gold. Virex hesitated for only a fraction of a second. The rumors were true. Still, he signaled the executioner. The blade fell. Across the galaxy, in observation decks, prison blocks, resistant hideouts, and luxury towers, they watched. The feed beamed in real time to every world governed by the Galactic Sovereign Legion. There were no warnings, no sensors. Only the image of a child's body collapsing beneath a crimson arc of energy. And then silence. Not a scream, not a riot, just silence. For precisely 8 minutes. Commander Reza Taller leaned against the edge of command console aboard the Vigilant Dawn, staring at the screen as the footage ended. Around her, the bridge crew held their breath, waiting for orders. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. A low-frequency hum vibrated through the ship's frame. It was a resonance of something ancient coming online. A communication link. Not digital. Not traceable. Not human. Reza closed her eyes. "He was one of them," she whispered. "Confirmed," said her second-in-command, Lieutenant Silas Morrow. "They executed a seer. There was no protocol for this. No playbook. The Sovereign Legion had broken the one law that bound even the most ruthless empires together. Never touch the seers. Not even the emissaries of Eris had dared." Reza didn't wait for council approval. She pressed her palm to the core ignition terminal. "Activate Echo Protocol." Morrow stiffened. "Commander, that will—" "Do it." A deep metallic groan rippled through the ship as hidden subroutines unlocked. Across the fleet, Echo Protocol burst into action. 8 minutes after the boy's death, the sky over Virex's stronghold turned white. Not from bombs. From absence. The capital city of Kalar Prime vanished in a heartbeat. No debris. No flame. Just gone. An entire planet's command hub erased as if it had never existed. And it didn't stop. Over the next 60 seconds, a cascade of planetary collapses followed. Eridon, Venmer, Jaxel 4, Virex's private moon garrison, all vaporized in flawless synchrony. The Sovereign Legion's core worlds, their crown jewels, were dismantled by weapons that left no trace, no warning, and no target to strike back against. On the 8th minute, the transmission ceased. High Marshal Virex stood in the ashes of his war room, eyes fixed on the charred ruin of the galactic map. The stars representing his dominion no longer blinked. They had been wiped clean. "Who?" he hissed, gripping the edge of the shattered console. No one answered. He turned to the last screen still functional. A single message burned across it in the boy's golden script. Unmistakable, glowing with power no human hand could replicate. The stars will remember. Virex staggered back, for the first time in his reign, uncertain, afraid. In the shadow of a silent moon, Reza Taller stood alone at a narrow observation bay aboard the Vigilant Dawn, watching the fire fade across the black. She had known the boy only briefly. Enough to know he had trusted them. Enough to know she had failed him. But in his death, he had ignited something no weapon could forge. Unity through outrage and wrath. Reza pressed a hand to the window, her fingers tracing the void. "This isn't justice," she said quietly. "But it's a beginning." Behind her, the bridge lights dimmed. A new transmission flickered onto the console. Encrypted. Seer code. One word. More. The mountain city of Tel Aver clung to the cliffs of Atheron like frostbite. Beautiful, cold, and unforgiving. Nestled beneath storm-scarred skies, it had long been hidden from orbital scanners and conquest fleets. A remnant city, once a capital, now a refuge. At its heart, Deep beneath reinforced ice and old-world steel, a man sat cross-legged in a vault of humming crystals. Dr. Malincourse had not spoken in 12 years, not since the fall of Seraph Prime, when his daughter was taken by the Legion's enforcers. Since then, his words have been numbers, his voice only code. A mathematician turned cryptologist, turned myth, but now, across the crystal interface before him, he read the message written in seer script. More. His breath caught. His hand trembled. He reached for the comm. Captain Elin Varick adjusted her pressure gloves as her dropship punched through Atheron's upper stratosphere. The cold screamed across the fuselage like a banshee, but she felt nothing. Not the cold, not the altitude, not the weight of the war crimes tribunal she'd abandoned to be here. Approaching Telver, her pilot said, voice clipped, "They're not answering hails." "They won't." She secured her gear, clipped her pistol to her thigh, and stepped to the drop hatch. "Wait, you're not." But she was already gone. Varick fell like a spear through clouds, body wrapped in ablative armor and fire. To any sensor above, she was just debris, a frozen fragment of the broken sky. To Tel Aviv, she was something else. Malin was waiting when she landed. No words, just a nod. She followed him down into the vault, through corridors thick with dust and resonance. "Still building weapons in the ice, old man?" she asked, not unkindly. "No," Malin rasped. His voice was gravel, dry from disuse. "This time I'm opening a door." They entered the core chamber. The crystals were pulsing now, feeding off something deeper than energy. Malin gestured to the glyph spinning above the array. "She sent a message," he said. "Your commander, Taller." Varick squinted. "She triggered Echo Protocol. That much I know." "No," Malin said, shaking his head. She responded. The message came after. It didn't originate from her ship. Varick's spine tensed. Then from where? Malin turned slowly. From inside the burn zone. From a world that no longer exists. Elsewhere, aboard a derelict mining freighter drifting between fractured moons, a boy sat upright in a sealed cryochamber. His chest heaved. Gold light bled from the corners of his eyes. The boy, Lior, though none living had spoken his name aloud in weeks, breathed an air that should have been stale. Around him, instruments flickered to life, responding not to code but to thought. He climbed out slowly, barefoot on cold steel. There was no one there to greet him, only an old robe, folded precisely on a nearby console, and a voice playing softly through a speaker embedded in the wall. It was his own. "If you're hearing this, then I died, but not for nothing." Lear didn't blink. He let the voice play. "They think the seers are extinct. They think we were few. They're wrong. We were hidden." Outside the freighter, a planetary husk rotated in slow silence, missing half its mass. One of the planets destroyed by Echo Protocol. And yet, here he was, alive. Commander Reza Taller watched the encrypted stream flicker on the console again. The message had returned. Only now it was accompanied by a fragment of sound, barely a note, but unmistakably human. A single syllable sung in a dialect long thought extinct. Reza didn't speak it fluently. Few did anymore, but she understood enough. "Awaken." She turned to Lieutenant Morrow. "Get me Dr. Course. Now." Morrow hesitated. "We thought he's not dead." Reza tapped the console. "He's broadcasting, and he knows something I don't." Morrow nodded and vanished into the comm room. Alone, Reza stared into the data stream. The conflict had changed. The Legion had believed they were erasing history. Instead, they had triggered its return, and she had just enough time to prepare for what came next. On a ruined moon once loyal to the Sovereign Legion, survivors picked through ashes. A girl no older than 10 touched a piece of scorched stone, and it glowed briefly beneath her fingers. Another child watched her from behind a collapsed drone tank, eyes wide. "Do it again," he whispered. She did. Light bloomed under her hand. The mark of the seers. They weren't gone. They were waking up. In Tel Aviv, Dr. Malincourt stood before a massive chamber buried deeper than any vault. The door had no key. It opened only for those whose minds sang the ancient tones. the resonance of seers. He placed his hand against the steel. It trembled, groaned, shifted, and opened. Elin Varric drew her sidearm. "What's in there?" Malin smiled for the first time in years. An answer the Legion spent centuries trying to bury, beyond the spiral rim of the Orion Fold, where light itself bent strangely and even warships traveled blind. A fortress floated in silence. It had no name in official archives. The Legion called it Black Spire, though no soldier spoke the words willingly. Inside, deep within its gravity-sunken core, a man stood alone in a room of glass and void. Archregent Saren Vel stood without armor, robe trailing like smoke behind him. His eyes were closed, hands pressed together in front of his chest as if in prayer. Around him, hundreds of screens displayed chaos. Legion fleets gone silent, entire planets reduced to scorched memory, soldiers mutinying without orders. A voice buzzed at his ear. "Sir, the reports are confirmed. Protocol Echo was activated. The child was a seer." Vel opened his eyes. They were pale and glassy, yet beneath them burned something far colder than rage. "Not a seer," he said. "The seer." The aide hesitated. We believe them extinct. The culling was never complete." Vel interrupted. "We kill their temples, not their bloodlines." He turned to face the central holomap, where Commander Rezataler's fleet glowed faintly near the Aderon systems. "She thinks she started something," Vel said. "She hasn't. She's only invited it back." In the cavern beneath Tel Aver, the vault opened fully. A staircase led downward, impossibly old and humming with dormant life. Elin Varric descended first, pistol drawn, boots silent on obsidian stone. Malin followed, his eyes wide not with fear but awe. "It was here long before the Legion," he whispered, "before the first colonies, before we thought of empires." At the bottom, they found a circular chamber, stone and light, etched with interlocking seer glyphs. In its center hovered a metallic orb, spinning soundlessly, projecting slow pulses of golden light. Varric scanned the perimeter. "Weapon?" Malin shook his head. "Not directly." He reached toward the orb. As his hand approached, the light expanded into a sphere, revealing a holographic star map, dynamic, alive. Dozens of points flared to life across it. Remote moons, derelict space stations, buried ruins. They were never all in one place. Malin said, awestruck. "The seers didn't gather. They distributed. These are the fragments." Varric's voice dropped. "Fragments of what?" "Of memory," Malin whispered. "Of the seer network. Their minds weren't separate. They were a lattice, a communion of thought spread across the stars, until the Legion shattered it. And now it was reassembling, on the mining freighter adrift near the echo-burned world." Leor stared at the cracked mirror mounted above the console. He saw the face of a child, his own, but within his eyes swam something ancient. Not voices, presences. He wasn't alone in his mind anymore. The lattice was waking up, and it was calling him home. High above, aboard the Vigilant Dawn, Rezataler studied the message fragment again. This time, it came with coordinates, precise, blinking, urgent. She recognized the sector. It was uninhabited. Allegedly. "Plot course," she said. Morrow raised an eyebrow. "Without backup?" "Yes," Reza answered. "We don't need backup. We need truth." In the Black Spire, Sarenvel walked slowly through a corridor lined with stasis tanks. Inside each one floated a child, sleeping, eyes closed, each wearing the telltale golden glow beneath translucent lids. "They thought we were trying to destroy the seers," he said softly to his aide. "But we weren't. We were refining them." He stopped in front of the largest tank. Inside floated a child slightly older than Leor. Its chest rose and fell, steady as a metronome. Saren placed a hand on the glass. "He's the perfect vessel. Unlike the others, he was never awakened." "Then what do we call him?" the aide asked. Vel's smile was thin. "The last echo." Back in Tel Aver, the map continued to shift. Each glowing point on the seer lattice pulsed brighter now, communicating not through frequency or code, but through memory itself. Varric stepped closer. If the Seers come back, there will be war. They never left, Malin said. They simply forgot who they were. A sudden jolt rocked the vault. Dust rained from the ceiling. Varric drew her weapon again. Seismic. Malin turned pale. No, not from below. Above, in the storm-cloaked skies of Adon, a ship pierced through the clouds. Black Spire design. Unmarked. Silent. Predatory. They had found them. And somewhere in deep drift space, the boy named Lior took one slow breath and whispered a name he had never been taught. Vel. Then he opened his palm. Golden light bloomed, not as an attack, not as a shield, but as a beacon. And across the stars, others saw it. Others answered. The black ship did not announce itself. It simply hovered above Tel Avir's highest peak, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. No insignia, no call sign, just presence. Inside the vault, Elin Varric pressed 2 fingers to her earpiece. Reza, we've got company, she said, voice flat but urgent. Black Spire signature, solo vessel, but it's not a scout. Commander Reza Taller's voice crackled back. Confirmed. We see it too. No heat signature. No life forms aboard. Malin's hand trembled above the seer lattice, still glowing in midair. They've sent a ghost ship, he murmured. Autonomous. Tracing the lattice energy. Can it see us? Varric asked. Malin's eyes narrowed. It already has. Above them, the air pressure shifted. The ship wasn't just observing. It was awakening something on the vigilant dawn. Taller Watcher officers rushed to analysis stations. The signal from the Black Spire ship had begun pulsing in patterns. Brief, staccato bursts, followed by silence. Not language. Not exactly. Morrow leaned over his console. It's not transmitting. It's mimicking. Reza's eyes flicked to the lattice readouts. The ship was reflecting the seer frequency back into system, an artificial mirror of the awakening signal. She stepped forward. They're trying to hijack the lattice. Morrow frowned. Is that even possible? No, but if they distort it long enough, they might collapse the whole field before it stabilizes. She looked at the screen. We need the seer. We need Lior. Lior drifted. His body was seated, feet tucked beneath him in lotus posture, but his mind stretched outward, into currents he didn't understand, memories he didn't live. He saw worlds he'd never visited, wars he never fought, and a woman, tall, veiled in starlight, with hands that turned into flame. She looked at him with sorrow, not maternal, but ancestral. They will try to chain you, she said. Not with steel, but with memory. Lior blinked. Her voice faded, replaced by a gnawing pull in his chest. A tug in the direction of Atheron. He stood. He didn't know how he would get there, but the lattice did. In the vault, the holographic map began to tremble. The points of light, previously static, now drifted toward a single convergence. A beacon was calling them. Or perhaps one of them had become the beacon. Malin stared at it, his voice barely a whisper. The lattice is collapsing into him. Elin Varric raised her pistol as the floor beneath them vibrated. That's not just data. No, Malin said. It's guidance. The seers, what's left of them, they're aligning with the boy. Suddenly, the orb in the center of the chamber pulsed once, hard enough to knock both of them backward. From it, a narrow spike of light stabbed upward, piercing the rock above and shooting through the summit, straight into the waiting ship. In the skies, Black Spire vessel reacted, not with weapons, with sound. It began to emit a resonance, low, mournful, building into something like a scream heard through water. The pulse spread not just through Tel Aviv, but into orbit, across the relay stations, through subspace bandwidths. The stars flickered. It was a severance field. Commander Taller slammed a fist into console. They're severing the lattice, she said, blood draining from her face. They're not killing the seers. They're cutting them off from each other. Morrow's hands flew across the interface. We can't jam it. The frequency shifts every second. We don't need to jam it, Reza said slowly. We need to outsignal it. Morrow blinked. You mean amplify the original lattice? Yes. She turned toward the comms unit. Patch me through to the Aderon node. Direct pulse. I'm going to broadcast. Deep in the vault, the air cracked with energy. Malin fell to his knees. It's too much, he gasped. If they hold the severance for more than 3 minutes, every seer node goes dormant, maybe permanently. Elon fired a shot into the ceiling. Not out of panic, but calculation. It struck a fracture. Rocks collapsed, cutting off the direct path of the signal beam. Buys us a few seconds, she muttered. Talk faster. Malin gritted his teeth. Lior is the keystone. If we can align the lattice to his signature, just him, it might bind the network into a single mind, like a shield. And if it overloads him, then we lose the last seer. Lior stepped into the ship that wasn't his and closed his eyes. Take me there, he whispered. The walls shimmered. In the next instant, the mining freighter cracked with impossible energy and disappeared. Not jumped, shifted. On the vigilant dawn, Reza began to speak. Not in language, but in the seer tone she'd barely remember from childhood lessons. It was a chant, a litany. It wasn't pretty. It was true. And across the relay nodes, it echoed. The severance field began to sputter. The mimic signal faltered. And then, Leo arrived. His freighter appeared above Tel Avar mid-collapse, glowing from within, lattice energy dripping off it like solar flame. He wasn't flying it. He was it. The Black Spire ship reacted instantly. Weapons deployed. But it was too late. The seer lattice, having found its center, collapsed inward into Lure, and then rebounded outward like a tidal wave of light. It passed through the black ship and turned it to dust, not exploded. Erased. In the vault, Malin wept, not out of grief, but relief. They returned, he whispered. All of them. Varric helped him to his feet. We still have a war coming. Yes, Malin said. But now we have our spark.